Oh, that's right. Welcome, everyone. I am John Ryan. I'm here in Fenway Park to talk baseball, and this is the Full Count Show powered by SportsMemo TV. And I'm joined by Jeff Michaels of JM Sports, founder and owner of JM Sports, and Jesse Schule, and he's founder and owner of Jesse Schule. Welcome to the show, Jesse and Jeff. Jeff Michaels, if you don't know it, is part of the family of Ralph Michaels. In fact, he's the son of Ralph Michaels, which is, from my viewpoint, Jeff, that's quite the honor. It really is. I've known your dad an awful long time, and he's, obviously one of the best. He has the integrity second to none, and just a great guy to be hanging around. And I'll be doing TNA shows with him. Football's right around the corner, but this is baseball. In baseball over the weekend, it was kind of interesting, guys. We had the Phillies 9-game win streak snapped rather abruptly in a 13-1 drubbing to the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Phillies are now taking on the Miami Marlins in one of the games we are going to talk about tonight. And also the Dodgers were swept by the Giants 3 consecutive games. I wasn't too surprised by that. But their lead now nationally West is down to a half game. The Mets' lead is down due to the Atlanta Braves winning 11 in a row. And I don't think the Braves are ever going to lose another game the rest of the way. They're kind of like resembling the Yankees in many ways, who destroyed the Cubs over the weekend, outscoring them 24-. I think the Cubs actually had negative runs scored, actually. It was so bad. But that was not a good series for the Cubs, and they continue to struggle. But those are the current trends in Major League Baseball over the weekend. Why don't we get started with a look at the Phillies game tonight? That game is in Philadelphia. Weather is very humid today. The ball's probably going to be carrying out pretty good to right center with the westerly winds that are prevailing right now. And that's normally the way the winds blow there. And it is it is rather short porch to right field for a lot of these hitters at the Major League Baseball level. Even though the ball supposedly is softer with the different stitching, it still carries just like it carries at Arlington, just like it carries in the stadiums that we're used to seeing massive amounts of home runs hit. But this is the Miami Marlins, and this is an awesome pitching matchup with Alcantara on the hill for the Marlins, by far my favorite pitcher of the Marlins over the years. And, he is just Mr. Steady Eddie, and he's just solid. He rarely has a bad start. And when he does have a bad start, he comes back with an above average performance. We're going against the Phillies. Aaron Nola, who now has gotten run support finally, and he is 3-0 over his last 3 starts with a skinny 2.86 ERA. Why don't we start with Jesse Schule and see what his take is on this National League East matchup tonight?
Well, John, you mentioned that Alcantara bounces back after having a rough start, but perhaps I'm not old enough to remember the last time Alcantara had a bad start. He is 4-0 with a 0.44 ERA in his last 5 starts. Only 2 earned runs allowed in that stretch. He's been on fire. 6-2 with a 1.61 ERA overall this year. The Phillies were the hottest team in baseball until Sunday, when they lost 13-1 in the final game against Arizona, as you mentioned. Aaron Nola completes the other side of this pitching matchup, which looks like a potential pitcher's duel. However, you mentioned the weather might not cooperate with that prognosis. Nola has been good, but not great at home. And I'm looking at Miami here as the dog, with clearly the pitcher with the better numbers. I like Miami on the run line. A little bit expensive, but I'll take Miami plus 1.5 here.
Well, sometimes it is beneficial to use the run line, even though it is expensive, because if they lose by 1, obviously you're still a winner instead of a loser. I had an example over the weekend with the Pittsburgh Pirates as a 250 underdog, and darn it if I shouldn't have played the run line. But anyway, I like your take, and Jeff, I want to hear your breakdown, but also a question for you ahead of time here. The over is 7.5 runs, minus 105. People are betting the under in this game. I don't know how much weather will impact this outcome tonight, but I do know that when it gets humid and moist and warm in South Philadelphia, and I'm not talking about their cheesesteaks either, the ball tends to fly, even if they're using tennis balls. So maybe the over might be a look here, in my opinion. What do you think?
You are flirting with my best bet of the day, John.
Oh man,
No, it's all right.
I actually didn't know it.
No, it's okay. I think the weather's going to be a big part, but I also I like Jesse's run line bet. I thought it might be a little expensive too, but even though Philly's been on this run, Miami's won 5 out of their last 6 games, and they're putting up over 6 runs a game themselves. And the only thing that I can add to the Alcantara conversation is the fact that in his 11 starts against the Phillies, his team is 7-4. So he's had a pretty good history against them specifically too. And when you look at Philly, I mean, the one thing that does look in their favor is that home teams with a starting pitcher with a whip 1.15 or lower in the NFL or NL, excuse me, thinking football. After a game where the bullpen was racked for 6 or more runs, they're 41-13 straight up. So that does give a little edge to the Phillies, in my opinion, but I do like Miami on the run line. And I'll talk a little more later, but I do like that total too for you there, John.
Nice job, Jeff. And the Phillies, the last 7 games, obviously they're now 6-1 with the loss yesterday, but they're finally putting it together. And I said last week, I think you guys were on the show as well, that this team on paper right now should not be under 500. They should be 8 or 9 games over 500, even more. And I still think they are a vastly underrated team, even though they're coming off the loss. And now, betting mentality is that, okay, they had the 9-game win streak, and now they have the loss. So that's done and over with. They'll go back to, reverting to the mean and being a bad team. I don't see it. Plus, Castanal, I can't say his name right. You know who I'm trying to say?
Castellanos.
Yeah, the guy from the Reds that the Phillies got. He's batting 198 over his last 30 games, and the Phillies have scored an average of 6 runs, batting 284 with a 351 on-base percentage despite that. God help opposing pitchers if he gets the act together and then starts contributing like some of these other guys are. Bryce Harper leads the National League in extra base hits by a considerable margin, and nobody gets hotter than him. So just throwing that out there. Let's move over to the second game here and talk about I believe it's the Cincinnati Reds in Arizona. Is that correct here? Yep. So we got the Reds, who started out 3-22, are now 21-39. So they've been playing basically 500 balls since that crazy opening. And Arizona now is 29-33. The National League West is a surprise division, in my opinion, with Colorado, the only team that's really fading off at the 500 level. Obviously, the Diamondbacks are 4 games under, but they're fully capable of being a 500 team. It's hard to read the Reds. The Reds are 5th in the National League Central. Rarely do they put in consistent back-to-back or even series-to-series type of performances. So they are, to me at least, a very volatile type of club where you just don't know what you're going to get. And if you bet against them, the fear is that they'll have a great night and score 12 runs and make you look foolish. But why don't we start with Jeff and see what he has in this breakdown to add to my initial comments here.
Yeah, both these teams have kind of proven they can score. It hasn't turned over in the records column, but Cincinnati's off the 1-run win yesterday, and prior to that, they were on a 2-7 run in the last 9 games. And Arizona isn't playing a whole lot better than that. They're just 3-6 in their last 9 games, but they are off that considerable win against Philly yesterday. And Arizona's also, they're 2-0 this year after scoring 10 or more runs, which isn't something they do very often, but they're also 7-1 after winning by 4 or more runs in the game before. So Merrill Kelly's been all right this year. I mean, he's got an ERA of 3.32, even though his team's just 500 at 6-6 in his 12 starts. But in his last 3 starts, Arizona's won 2 out of 3 of them, and his ERA has been just a 2.81. So the Arizona teams also, they're 16-4 at home against the NL in teams allowing 4.5 or less runs in the last 2 years. So teams that have been holding other teams to a low run total, they've been able to knock down in the last 2 years, and they've won 7 out of the 10 games against Cincinnati. But, you know, even more than that Arizona side, I do like Mike Minor to go under his strikeout total at 4.5. He's making just his 3rd start this year, and he's averaging only 8 strikeouts on the road in the last 3 seasons per 9 innings. He only went 4 innings and 4 1/3 in his first 2 starts, and Arizona's played pretty well against left-handed pitchers. So I do like that Arizona, but I like that strikeout Mike Minor under that 4.5 too at plus money.
Do you think, Jeff, his career of 4 starts against Arizona, he has a pretty good 2.42 ERA and a whip of 1.077. Is that enough sample size to make a difference in your opinion on the under strikeouts, or is it completely independent of that?
I don't think that makes a huge. I think one of the biggest things that I'm looking at is the fact that it is only his 3rd start of the year. He only had 4 strikeouts in his first 2 starts, and he hasn't made it more than 4 1/3 innings. So, you know, I think a little more of what goes into my opinion in this one is the length that he goes, the length that I think he's going to go into a game against an Arizona team that hasn't struck out a whole lot against left-handed pitchers this year.
Great point. I love it. Let's move over to Jesse Schule and see whether he likes the Cincinnati Reds or if he likes the Diamondbacks or whether he just doesn't like this game.
I'll tell you what I'd like. I'd like to tackle that sample size question about Mike Minor, and I'll hit you with the first point. You mentioned he's got good numbers over 4 career starts against Arizona. I will say it's perhaps more relevant that his last start came against Arizona, and he allowed 3 runs on 3 hits with 3 walks in 4 1/3 innings in that game. I'll also say Mike Minor, 0-2, 8.64 ERA in just 2 starts this season is a small sample size, but a career ERA of 4.97 as well-traveled and as long as he's been around in the majors is a big enough sample size for me not to back Mike Minor today. The Reds, they lost 2 of 3 at St. Louis. They did get the win yesterday, but their road record of 9-22, still the worst in the majors. Those 22 losses is the most road losses of any team. And you have Merrill Kelly going for the Diamondbacks, who is not great. He wouldn't be good enough to be an ace on most teams. 5-3, 3.32 ERA. He's been pretty good lately. He's got a pretty decent ERA at home. One thing he doesn't have going for him, though, his last start was against the Reds. And he was great in that game, but anytime I see 2 starting pitchers facing the same lineup in less than a week, that means these hitters have seen their stuff. They have the ability to perhaps make adjustments. And Arizona being a notorious hitter's park, Mike Minor being a notorious below average pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds, I'm going to look at the over 4.5 for the first 5 innings in this game.
Yeah, I like that, Jesse. I'm with you on that. Arizona last 7 days, 5.4 runs per game, 227 batting average. However, do you have any concern about the fact that they're hitting just as bad as they've hit all year, basically, but they just come to get some clutch hits? Those seem to be anomalies to me and not sustainable, but do you have any concern with that?
No concern at all.
Fair enough. Let's move over to the 3rd and final game, and that is the Minnesota Twins, who I've kind of gotten enamored with of late. You know, they took it kind of on the chin with the Yankees, but they did win the last game of that series, and certainly played the Yankees better than the Cubs did. That was just dreadful. It makes you sick thinking about it. But Seattle here, 4th in the American League West, kind of a sneaky team. Chris Flexen, though, has been struggling, 2-7. Sometimes in large part because he's not getting any run support because the Seattle Mariners offense is just so anemic. I don't even know where to start with that. But Flexen has an ERA 4.35, just slightly above average American League starting pitcher. Minnesota still in first place in the American League Central. They bring on Chris Archer, who is coming back into form, in my opinion. He's only 1-2 in the season, but his ERA is 3.65. Some of the other metrics now are starting to get back to Chris Archer-like status. So my initial lean here, guys, is to go with Minnesota, and I'm surprised that it's basically a pick'em line. Tell me what's wrong with the line and what's wrong with backing the Minnesota Twins. And let's start with Jesse here.
Yeah, John, I saw the same thing that you saw. I'm looking at the line thinking Minnesota should be a clear favorite here. Again, Chris Archer, he's coming off that win over the Yankees. I did bet against him in that game, which was obviously a mistake. He's 1-2 with a 3.65 ERA. He allowed 1 run and 2 hits in 5 innings in that game against the Yankees. And Archer has this ability to get himself into trouble, but get himself out of trouble. He's been good at that throughout his career. And then Chris Flexen going for the Mariners, 2-7, 4.35 ERA. Nothing stands out about his splits. However, he did allow 3 runs on 5 hits and 3 walks in 4 1/3 innings in a loss to Minnesota earlier this year. And Minnesota's 4-0 coming off of a loss. They're the better team, and they're listed here as a pick'em or a dog. I have to, I'm going to pass on this game, but if you held a gun to my head, I would take Minnesota.
Well, I would never do that to you, Jesse. Not in a million years. Not if you make fun of the way I look or talk or speak.
Bet on Philadelphia's team.
Never. I don't think you should hold anything like close to your head anymore. Like even a cell phone is dangerous, I think, isn't it? I think it is. Anyway, I like your take on that game. I think it's a hard game to handicap. Of all the games on the board, we have 10 matchups today. 10 teams have the day off in Major League Baseball, but this one really intrigued me in terms of why this line was pick'em when, like you said, it seems so obvious. In Minnesota, I'd be like 140, 150. Let's see if Jeff Michaels can add his expertise to this and give us some direction on who to go with.
Yeah, I agreed too. I was kind of surprised when I saw it. This was one of the ones I looked at early because I just saw where that line was, and I didn't think that it was where it should have been. Just as you guys said, more in favor of Minnesota. But both teams are coming off of shutouts against AL East opponents, and both pitchers are pitching slightly under expectations. But as you guys mentioned, Archer's making his way up there, and he is just 1-6, or his team is just 1-6 in his 7 starts against Seattle. And Flexen's allowed just 6 earned runs in his last 18 2/3 innings, which has been his last 3 starts. So there is that little glimmer of hope, I guess, for Seattle. But, I almost find myself avoiding it too. I almost leaning with the under, seeing as Archer's 1-4 over under on the road this year, and Flexen's just 3-8. Over under. So a lot of it does come from that lack of run support for their overall records. And, home teams that are allowing less than or equal to 4.4 runs this year after a combined score of 3 or less runs do have a pretty good record at home, which does give Seattle that edge. But, I do find myself leaning with Minnesota on an offsided line, but I think I like the under better even.
Yeah, I'm leaning under too. And just looking here, Archer, his team record is 1-6. I think you mentioned that against Seattle, but his ERA is 2.90, 1.165. So, these guys have teams that they really excel against. And then they have other teams where they can't get out of their own way. And there's no reason for that other than it happens. And Flexen here, 1-1, not much of a sample size. ERA is 4.15. But this game definitely feels like an under, and it seems like a game that Archer might be able to pitch into the 7th inning, possibly at least complete 6, a quality start, 3 or less earned runs. I see that definitely happening for Archer. And if there's a prop bet for that, I think I would back that as well. Yeah. So let's see. We covered all 3 games, right?
Yep. Best bets.
And yeah, this is the nervous part. You have to decide who you're going to take. I'm going to go last because I'm the host and I can dictate who goes last. I just like going last. It's like batting third. I mean, that's way cooler than batting eighth, right? Why don't we start with Jeff Michaels here with his best bet of the day? We'll put him on the spot as leadoff, which is a very good position to be in any lineup on the face of the earth. Take it away, Jeff, and tell us where to put our money tonight.
Yeah, we tapped in on it earlier, but I like that Miami Philly game that we talked about going over that total. Like we said, that weather's going to play a big part, taking that ball out to right field in a hitter's ballpark. But both teams have a recent history of going over. Miami's gone over in 10 out of the last 16 games, and they're coming off one of their highest scoring efforts, combined efforts with Houston yesterday. And Philadelphia is 14-3 over under in their last 17 games, just constantly going over the total. And then you got Aaron Nola, who's gone over, the team's gone over in 8 of his 12 starts this year, including 5 out of 6 of his home starts. And 3 out of 4 of the head-to-head games this season have gone over the total. So I do think they'll both have another high-scoring affair, and we're going Marlins Phillies over that 7.5.
Great stuff. Great stuff. And I'm with you on that one. I am with you. There'll be more on that game shortly, I think. Let's move over to Jesse Schule and see who he likes tonight.
Well, I'm going to take another look at this Cincinnati-Arizona game. I mentioned that both pitchers are facing the same lineup for the second time in less than a week. But Merrill Kelly was pretty outstanding against the Reds last week. Last Thursday, in fact, he threw 6 scoreless innings, allowing 1 hit and striking out 5 in the victory. And Merrill Kelly is 2-1 with a 2.81 ERA in his last 3 starts. His home ERA of 2.65 is looking pretty solid. And on the other side, you got Mike Minor, and I did trash Mike Minor earlier in this show. One of the things about him is we're not expecting him to go deep into this ball game in just his 3rd start. And he did get roughed up a little bit in his last start, which was against Arizona. Arizona is 8-3 in their last 11 as a home favorite. They have won 7 of their last 9 head-to-head against the Reds. And the Reds do come in with that major league leading 22 road losses. The line here at -150 seems fair enough to me. I'm going to back Arizona as the home favorite.
And I have no problem with that one either. We're all kind of in sync here today on a Monday. I'm going to do the best bet here, and this is a tough one, but I'm going to continue to ride the Phillies wave here. I don't know how many times I've bet them during this win streak, but when you see a team start catching fire, no matter who it is, it's 20 years ago that the Oakland A's won 22 games in a row, and you don't want to fade teams like that. That are playing that well. I learned that lesson the hard way. It was 14 straight wins, and I know for a fact I think I went against them 3 games in a row, and then I decided to stop losing money betting against a team that just couldn't find a way to lose. Sometimes a team can't find a way to win. Sometimes they can't find a way to lose. And the Phillies got absolutely destroyed yesterday, but it wasn't an emotional one-run loss in the 9th inning. There was no emotion to it at all. They lost start to finish. So I usually, I'm always a what-if person or what's next. So we had the Phillies win 9 games in a row. They lost. So what happens next historically? You might want to know, Jesse and Jeff, that the teams that are on a 9-game win streak that ends with a home loss of 5 or more runs, 11-2 they are, 85% winning bets, averaging a -142 money line wager. That translates into a 42% return on investment. It's one of the most outstanding angles I have in the database, and it supports the Phillies. So I think the Phillies at -1, whatever they are, 128, 127 now, is extraordinarily cheap. I wouldn't play the run line, but I would join Jeff Michaels with the over bet and suggest, and it's rare for me to even suggest a parlay because I hate them. But the Phillies in the over here seems to be a real good opportunity. And that's that. So now we go back to everybody else here. And I guess that's the end of the show. I always have a sad moment, like when it's over and there's nothing more we can talk about.
We can talk about it all on Manny's Irish Pub in about half an hour.
Well, it'll be an hour and a half from now. Actually, we'll start at 5 because
All right.
our partners in crime, Mr. Finn, Mr. Vino, Mr. Mejia, are tied up with another show that is the NBA tip-off show that's run by Wager Talk, and that's another excellent show hosted by Joe Ranieri with a rotating cast of guests, just like this show is a great show with rotating guests, and it's always fun and a pleasure to do these shows with you guys. But after that, I think we'll let the hair down, and we'll probably be listening to Mr. Finn quite a bit. So that's a real good deal. It is $9 Monday at both Wager Talk and SportsMemo.com. That means Jeff Michaels, Jesse Schule, myself, all our picks are $9. I am running about a 69% clip here the last 50 NBA plays, and I do have one going tonight. Just fortunate to have all sports heading in the right direction. And NHL, I already have my Wednesday pick out for game 1. That's backed by a 92% game situation for that particular game. Before I let you guys go, Jesse, what do you got going tonight on $9 Monday?
11-1 run with 5-star plays. Ooh. Perfect in the NBA final or in the NBA playoffs with 5-star plays.
Awesome.
And that's getting tested tonight.
Well, when you're hot, Jesse, I can't emphasize enough that people should go get your pick, and it's only $9. That's the cost of a 20-ounce IPA here in the East Coast that isn't even top shelf, right? Which would you rather have? A guy that's 11-1, or would you rather have a one single IPA that when you're done drinking it, there's nothing more to enjoy? Your pick can last months of enjoyment.
Buy you a lot of IPAs.
It can, no doubt, especially with what we bet a game. Jeff Michaels, tell us what you got going $9 Monday at Sports Memo.
I'm on a 72% MLB run. So I got my best bet MLB play up for you today over there for just $9 too on Sports Memo.
That's awesome. And you noticed that I started out with my what I thought was impressive 69% run over my last 50 NBA plays, and it pales in comparison to 11-1. And Jeff Michaels, what'd you say, 72%?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just ho-hum, 72% winners. I mean, happens to me all the time, but it does. It happens a lot at Wager Talk and Sports Memo, and that's no joke. So, gentlemen, it'll bring us to the end of the show here. We did our best bets, and we'll be back tomorrow. I'll be hosting again at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for the Major League Baseball Full Count Show. We also have the Triple-Double on Wednesday coming up. We won't have a show tomorrow, just to give you a heads up for that. And that's about it, folks, with Manny's Pub at 5 o'clock. If you have the time to join us, that'd be great to see you. We'll buy you a drink. At least Jesse Schule has the money to do that. So until tomorrow, remember the simple 2 things that I always want you to remember. Bet with your head, never over it. And what's the rest, Jesse?
May all the wins be yours.
Boom.